Hello, welcome once again to Neurodiversity Tea Time on Friday at 10 o'clock UK time. But we're going out across all the platforms: Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, any podcasting host of choice. You'll probably find it because we're recording it and then it goes out afterwards across all those platforms. So you can watch it on catch up if that's your preference. However, we do like people to engage in the conversation. So those who are watching live, please let us know you're out there, but also do ask us any questions that you may have. Today we have an incredible guest with us, Catherine, and I was lucky enough to bump into Catherine the other day at a dyslexia show, which was lovely, and that shows the wonder of the neurodiversity community at the moment. That you can just bump into people in this small world that we live in. And it's like you've known them in person for a much longer time than you actually have. So, Catherine, would you like to give our audience an introduction to yourself and who you are, what you do?
Yes. Well, I say I'm Catherine Rayner. I've had previous names, but I'm on my second marriage. I will gabble because I'm nervous. I am an interior designer. I was late to the field. Previously, before that, I was a police officer. Well, I was a secretary because I had a fascination with buttons and typing. And then I was a police officer for 18 years. That sadly ended when my mental health went down the pan. I lost my identity and everything. And then I had to I sort of went to where I naturally sort of, from when I was young age, with sort of spaces and stuff. So I started studying interior design, and I've been studying it for 4 years, and I've got a first class BA honours. But through that design, I looked at neurodiversity in design and how our environments aren't matching up to our senses and to people who are neurodivergent, and that how actually our spaces that we work in, primarily our secondary spaces where we spend a lot of time, are actually not working for people and are disadvantaging people, and that really concerned me. So I studied it, and I studied why, and I studied, the different things of what, autism, ADHD, and all the variant things, PTSD, and sort of looked at it in design, because design is all around us. Design is integral to us. We are our senses, and everything that we see, hear, touch, feel, it's all in design.
I love that.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, the career, the 18 years as a police officer in the police force. Yeah. I just love that, Catherine, because I guess so many of us can resonate with spending so long doing one thing, only to go back to maybe those early passions where the energy goes. When we think of neurodiversity and the hyper-focus, being able to go back to that thing.
I think as well is that what I think is important is that we can have several careers. I think that's the bit which is all of us are living for longer, and sometimes we have to go down one channel because that's where society has driven us into one direction, where there's an expectation. But how wonderful then to be able to have choices to try and get your fitting with what you're saying. The environment you're in allows you to thrive or not, So if you're in the right working environment, home environment, people environment, you can thrive and enhance your skills. So it's lovely to see you've gone that journey, really.
What I have now is because I've got such a visual sort of way of looking at things, and I sort of realised what is my natural talent and what was given to me. To me, it's just all obvious. I mean, I can reflect back and I can see, through the police, I was in so many bad environments, where public, private, all sorts. And I can remember exactly the layout, what was where, what I felt and everything of what I felt when I walked into that room, how it made me feel. And I didn't know I was neurodivergent then. And like having had the sort of the complete meltdown, suicidal, everything, and then coming back and doing interior design, and then looking at it, and then looking at neurodiversity, which I sort of fell across because I never knew it was there, and then learning through my daughter as well, who is also neurodivergent. I didn't recognise me, and I recognised all these things. I thought, oh my God, it's me, you know. But it's taken time. It's taken time to accept, because you are you, aren't you? And you're so used to being you that you wouldn't expect, you know. It's just so, yeah. I've fully taken it on board, and now I use it to my advantage. I look back. I looked at all the things that didn't work, listen to people, observe, you know, and I chuck it all back in. And I just want to help people.
That's brilliant.
Well,
that's brilliant.
The good news is that you've got enthusiastic people who are interested in hearing as well. Chris, I'm interested in today, as we're about to bid for a tender to support underestimated founders, and really keen to make sure what we're building is sympathetic to those with neurodiversity.
Yes. Right. Well, interesting, because I think, you know, it depends who you know, is Chris a stakeholder?
Cryptic, isn't it? Actually, there's a bit of, Chris, you might want to elaborate on some of that, some of the key points. Because I was only, because he talks about founders. I was in an event a couple of days ago for VC, venture capitalists and private equity firms, and I think there's a wonderful opportunity in terms of neurodiversity design. These organizations that have possibly not even gone into their first built environment, you know, their first offices, if they're going to have one. So these organizations possibly are run by somebody who may be ADHD or autistic, because there's a high proportion. I have lots of hands go up in these rooms when I say it. So it's a great opportunity for Chris, perhaps, it depends on where they are at this stage, to really influence based on that experience I had from the other day.
Martin just was put up, which I was going to bring up, which is last year in October, we launched Design for the Mind, Neurodiversity in the Built Environment Guide. It's the first BSI PAS guidelines that came up. Really, you know, and that was co-created with architects and designers and engineers and individuals who are neurodivergent, and organizations as well, to start to provide those guidelines of how to think, how to build your spaces and places. So I think the time has come, because we are really thinking about this much more, how important it is to have the right way markers, the right environment to allow people to thrive. So it's a great time. I think, you know, we weren't talking about it even a year ago, really.
Yeah, I mean, I did say that the PAS document came out after I did my studies, and it was funny because I read it and I thought, well, I've come up with all this stuff myself, and so I've kind of, I thought, okay. But I think, you know, primarily, and that's all well and good, but as I say, it's like to add things on. I mean, I have a mind which I can walk into a room. If you want to say, if you like, coming back to Theo, if you've got your first office, that actual space in the first place has got to be in the right space. People, co-working spaces, I hate them. And they don't, oh God, they're just not set up for neurodivergent people. But anyway, you go and get a space and it's all in the subconscious. You're not thinking. All you're saying is, oh, I could work here. I see it through different eyes, and I see it through, well, actually, I will look at it through, obviously, my design training and all the elements. And then you add on top of that your senses and all the different senses that we have of what I know, you know, what our needs are and everything else. It is complex, but I can just instinctively put it together and say, well, no, that space is going to be no good for you because A, B, C, D, and E. And, you know, when you're putting all these things together, I think it's like building a house. You don't just build a room on top of a room. It'd look rubbish, wouldn't it? So, and design is the same. The inside is as important as the outside, if not more important, because that's where you're spending your time. And that's where your senses are activating. That's where you walk into when the first part of your day has been absolute hell because you've had to deal with kids or the traffic, or you get to work. And if you walk into the crap environment because you don't want to sit next to chubby boy across there because it makes you feel a bit funny, or, you know, that wall there is, oh, it's upsetting me. Anything, there's all these things. They all need to be thought through. And, you know, so I just throw out the design sort of manual and start again. Let's start again and let's listen to people and let's see what's important. Let's do it properly, not what's trendy.
I think it's a challenge. It's a challenge because I was reading this week, one of the news items this week is everybody going back to work again. There's a big push even again, for some of the big banks and corporate organizations to have everybody back in work. And if that's the case, one of the things that happened over COVID is we lost buildings and there was more hot desking. So your point, which is, you know, I would hate hot desking. I like to know my environment, but I don't mind a cafe sometimes with headphones on, having a cup of coffee. I don't mind other people if I can create my own environment. But if you don't know where you're going to sit and who you're going to be every day, and you're literally running to bag your desk, I think that can be really stressful. Really
and I've experienced that myself. And, you know, it's the pressure of getting from home to be at that desk, because you know you can only function at that one desk in that space and be the first one there, is immense. So that, you know, you've got that stress, and before you even get there, and if you don't, then what do? You spend half an hour because you can't settle. What a waste of time to you, your employer, everybody. I absolutely hate hot desking. It might be all right for someone. It might be all right, in, like you say, in a cafe, Amanda, because you have choice and you're only there for a short amount of time. And it's not your everyday working environment of 3, 4, 5 days a week. That's the difference.
You're choosing it, aren't you? You're creating your own space.
Yes, and you know you can walk away from it.
Let me challenge that. Let me challenge that then, because if you're an organisation and you've got your workforce saying they want to work from home more often, and you go, well, okay, you can work from home more often, but we've got 1,000 employees, we no longer need 1,000 seats. So we're now going to have 300 seats, and you're going to have to come in and you're going to have to hot desk, and you'll never get the seat you want, but you're going to get to work from home for 2 or 3 days a week. Like, where is the balance when we think about design in that context?
Well, it's not a perfect plan, and it's, you know, it's like neurodiversity. Everything's a work in progress, isn't it? We learn, we change, you adapt. And I have thought that one through, and, you know, it's not going to be perfect for all. And so I suppose you have to look at it down to, well, okay, then let's break it down and say, well, you to come in on what's it, and you work your days out where people have that choice. And so 300 desks will still be divided by 1,000 people, say, if you change the days and stuff. I'm not a mathematician, but, you know,
you can have fixed areas where you come to, even if you don't have your same desk. If you're organized, you can almost desk share, couldn't you? That would be something.
Because
you could do a desk.
Yeah, because you know what you're going to. You're not going to be surprised. You know, that desk can be plain. You can sort of on the days bring in your photo, put your photo out where, you know, organise it, you know. So, yeah.
I wonder if this is
very important. Sorry, Theo. No, just saying, having a Kit Kat in the drawer for those bad days, very important.
Mine used to be full of cheese crumbs. Oh, it was awful. Anyway.
But somebody else will eat it now because you're sharing the desk. That's the problem. Do you share the Kit Kat? But maybe this is a great question for Chat GPT, is to say we've got 1,000 people, we've got 300 desks, we've got 20% of them will need the same desk each time. We've got a higher proportion of people working on a Wednesday than any other day. Chat GPT, can you solve that conundrum for us? I'm fascinated because I think these are the types of questions that the three of us can go, we know the environment needs to be better. We know people need choice about working from home. We know all of these things, but what we may not be able to do, like Catherine, you will know the right sensory spaces and places and the right flexibility and all of that. But then the bit that we may struggle with is some of not just the maths, but Martin's saying easy maths. I'm like, listen, it ain't
easy. Martin, we'll pass it to you, Martin, to do the easy maths. Okay, we don't need Chat GPT. We'll go to Martin. All right,
we'll go to Martin. But I guess these are the interesting points around how we can utilize technology to maybe solve some of these problems where we know we're now starting to see the wonderful opportunities around how we can improve environments. We may just struggle with the should people be in work, shouldn't they be in work, and how we convince senior leadership that they need to make the right decision and not based on inaccurate or uninformed data, or the confusion around data, therefore they don't make those decisions. So it's just because I've been challenging Chat GPT.
I've seen that.
I stay away from it.
Yeah, well, I think it's amazingly interesting if you can utilize it in the right way. Bill Gates today has just brought out an article. I've just retweeted it, relinked it on LinkedIn about the future of AI and where he thinks it's going and what are the challenges. It's worth a read. It really is. So just come out this morning. So have a read, because I agree with you, Theo. It's got bumps, but it's really interesting though as well what it could potentially do and could change inequity. You know, a lot of the
Absolutely.
inequity.
And multiply ideas, you know. So very quickly, if you're getting stuck, now the best thing is to be in a room with other people, right? Well, or not if you don't want to be in a room with other people, a digital room, whatever, right? Or a chat room, because you get that level of creativity. But I find sometimes I'm sat on my own in a room, I've got no one else, and I've hit a brick wall, and I need to come up with an idea, a concept. I need to check it, and nobody's responding to me because everybody else is busy. Right, that ability to have some kind of interaction with something, I find is helpful. Even if I just laugh at the response because I think it's so ridiculous, it just helps. Like when we wrote the book, Amanda, it just helps you sometimes you just get stuck, so stuck. You just need to get out of that mud to be able to clear it. Let me come back to a point, actually, because I know, Amanda, you've written extensively about this, and Catherine, I appreciate your thoughts as well. Come back to the point around running events, because this is quite specific, and we see a lot of events now, and often I'd say I go to a lot of events, I see them, often they struggle to be neuro-inclusive.
They absolutely do.
Yeah, and Chris making a good point. How's he going to encourage startups, so founders from startups, I guess, to come along, and so to come along because the event is inclusive, but also then to broadly educate everyone that it's inclusive, right? And how you do it. Just some thoughts on maybe that. Amanda, maybe you want to start, because I know you've written like lists of this.
Yeah, I do, and I've got a handout if anybody wants it on. You know, if you contact me, DM me or whatever, and I'll send it. How to set up neuro-inclusive events. Not easy always, but actually thinking about it proactively. From imagine you are coming somewhere you've never been before, and then just breaking it down to all the component parts of how to get there, when you arrive, what's going to happen in the informal points. So the coffee times, the lunch times. And what happens if there is overwhelm and too many people there? Where can somebody go? And if you do that, sort of take that journey of imagining all those touch points, actually you can do quite a lot very easily, you know, and also allowing people to have the information as much as possible beforehand, knowing what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, and what the options are, often reduces our anxiety level. So anybody wants, I've done a free booklet. Just DM me and I'll send it to you. I'm happy to share it.
Yeah, and just on the back of that, I mean, I was just advertising my own services here, but you know, it's also about, you know, the space itself. Is it the right space? Is it laid out properly? And that's the sort of stuff that I can advise on, because they are difficult events. I generally try not to go to them, because if I go to one, like networking events, say, I'll go to one and won't go again because the setup's not right. And I can see very clearly why it is, but it's very difficult to say to somebody, actually, that's not right. And if you're getting it right for yourself and for a neurodivergent person, you're getting it right for everybody. So, you know, it's, but, you know, so happy to advise on all of these things, because, I mean, it isn't just, you know, how the place looks, it's how you interact with people. Where are your spaces? Do you want spaces? Because not everybody likes to talk in a group. They want to do one-to-one or just be on their own, or probably not even be in the room, or you know there are certain, and I come back to primal stuff. You know, we were built when we, you know, we have a survival in us, we have our fight and flight, and there's very much safety things that keep us safe and everything. I go back to those, and I think they are integral to design, and they should never be lost. So I always use those as my start point for anything. And then you put your senses on, you know, and I build it. So I look at it in, you know, bring us back. And actually, it's sort of biophilic, primal, and then some other stuff. But that's sort of what I do. But
what practically would you? Emily's just asking some examples of if you were doing an event, what sort of guidance could you give people? That might be helpful. Just some examples of that.
Well, I think you're right, Amanda. So you go through the journey in your head, and for every step you take, you look at okay, what's the sensory information I'm getting here? When I get there, is it very clear? Are you in a group? Are you going to get, is it sort of muddled to start with, or is it very clear what you do? And just take you through that journey. That space is really important. I mean, whether I should say this, I went to the Neurodiversity in Business conference, right, at Excel, and the whole location was wrong, because for a neurodivergent person, everything was down a long corridor and off, and it was just all not good. So I can't really explain it.
No, can I just jump in there? Not specifically that event, but I was literally just going to say, and this happens within organizations as well, right? There's almost like the policy, the legal requirement, right? So you go to a big event space, not calling any of them, but kind of calling some of them, they will tick the box for accessibility. You can get a wheelchair in because they're big. You can, it's got toilets that are accessible. So it ticks so many boxes that it can profess to be really accessible.
I'm glad you mentioned it.
From a disability perspective, and that may be accurate. And organizations do this all the time with the level of confidence around being accessible from a disability perspective. But in reality, there's still huge exclusion from a neurological diversity perspective.
And that's exactly, when I researched this, the DDA for accessibility for disability, it's there, it's written, we all comply with it, you have to by law. For neurodiversity, and I think this is where neurodiversity in design, there's a complete lack of knowledge. And as a designer, it is a specialist thing, because you have to, it's going through a very small lens of, well, I can see this. It's not, everybody doesn't have the ability to do that. And as I say, you can't just go chucking things at it. And it's all subjective to people, isn't it? And so I think because of little information about designing for neurodiversity, there isn't really much out there. So I do sit sort of on my own, and amongst a few others, perhaps.
I think Praveen and Willow and Emily's points, there, I think are pertinent, which is you need to have people who have a lived experience of to know what it feels like going into those different settings, because going in, I remember going and standing, waiting for coffee at a table and thinking, oh God, what do I say? Do I have a conversation? Don't I have a conversation? I've talked about the weather, what next? And actually it's having people with insight and experiences, personal experiences, modeling some of that and thinking about those touch points, saying what's happening at lunchtimes, what are the foods, it's going through each of those small things, because they seem small, but for somebody who's neurodivergent, they're massive. They're the bit that make you feel terribly uncomfortable. They really do.
Yeah, it's complicated, because I say it's social, it's physical, it's everything, and you have to go through those things. So it isn't making something look pretty nice and everything. It's making it's looking at it in a completely different light. Design. So you're designing for senses. You're not designing to make it look lovely and just functional. There is more to it, and I enjoy the challenge of it. I mean, that's because I'm satisfying my needs myself, my brain. I'm in a happy place. So, but so if anybody wants advice, I'm there, I can do it. I mean, you don't have to do a full refurbishment. You can just go and change the layout. You talk to people, and some of it's also culture. The culture of that office, has to change, doesn't it? Because you can't just implement, well, you're going to have, say, come back to the desk thing. It can create sort of, people get upset or they start bickering or whatever. You've got to address other things. So it's just a part of the bigger picture.
And can I just say that it's also about people being mindful. So when I mentioned, I can't remember when it was, but I was typing away with my eyes straining with my keyboard, and my friend and business partner came over and he's like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, I'm typing. He said, why are you like, why do you look in pain, basically? And I went, well, I can't properly see the keys. It's getting a bit dark. Me and you can't be bothered to turn the lights on. So, I'm struggling. And he just went, and he went and got me another keyboard that he happened to have. And he swapped it, and he went and he plugged it in, and it was all the keys lit up and they had different colors and stuff. Oh, wow. I'm telling you, I was just like, what is this wonderful thing?
It's empathy, isn't it? It's empathizing, putting yourself in the place of somebody.
Really, but it shows that the design is not, it's not just the design's important, but then it's other people maybe recognizing what's going on, for just looking at something and going, there's something not quite right about how they're sat, why don't I just go and go, like, is there something I can do? Because when I had that problem, I did this. Or do you want me to go and ask the person in facilities estate? Because I've gone there a few times and generally they're all right. Because sometimes people just don't know the opportunities that they have with that environment. So the balance between you going in, Catherine, giving them some fantastic advice, but the whole community embracing that to then continually like challenge it and question it and learn from the environment and the way that it moves, like a living organism, right?
Oh, it is, yeah. I mean, you've only got to start the conversation. People just go and you go sit there, you go sit there, and it's all very sort of factory-like, isn't it? Sort of well, whatever it is, can't remember the word anyway. And we just go in, we churn back out, we go back out. Nobody ever questions it, but you're like, And I did some research when I was doing my dissertation. I did some research, and I actually found 10% of people left their environment because of sensory overload. So they left the workplace, they left the job. 10% of people because the environment wasn't right. So that could be your talent. That could be, how much is that costing you? If you want to look at it in monetary terms, and, we have a retention and we have, recruitment thing, your environment is absolutely key in all of the neuro-inclusion sort of paradigm that we're in. So
it's about well-being. It's about, feeling a comfort, but also you've got to feel like you've got to be bold. And that's quite hard sometimes, to stand up and ask for what you want and what you need. And that, I think, Thea's point about sharing advice and guidance, what we can learn as a community, is massively hard. Somebody put about diversity and ability with their lighting and, jazz hands rather than clapping. We can learn from each other about what people like, what they don't like, and share that. That's really important. But also, what we like on one day may vary from another day. That's the other bit, is that, our sensory environment, we may be able to cope on one day, because we're one-to-one, but in a big large group it might be harder. So it's about being sensitive to each other, isn't it, really, as well?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's not a definite practice, but it's something, if you can build an environment to the best that it can be, you're never going to get 100%, but you can get. It can improve, and it can make it so much better for people. And it just shouldn't be overlooked, because I just feel that having been around, listening to people, going to places, nobody ever really talks about the actual environment that we're sitting in and the impact that actually has on us, because I think it's probably maybe little understood or not talked about. I'm not sure, but I certainly feel it, and I can certainly see it. I mean, where I'm sat now, I've created for myself, and I'm happy. But before I did this room up, it was absolutely, it was an old shop. And could I work in it? No, I couldn't. The impact of your space has so much impacts on so much your ability of what you can produce every day, and how your well-being. So if you've got well-being policies in your workplace, but your workplace is not set up properly, what's the point?
Brilliant, thank you. We're just going to wrap up now. We're coming to an end. The 10% point, I see the bigger factor for me is not just the 10%, they're the lucky people who get out of that environment and go and find another one, hopefully, that's better for them. It's those people who may not realize their migraines are triggered by the lights.
Absolutely.
Those people who don't have a choice to leave that environment because they can't take the risk. It's
Yeah.
all of those people in the work environment whose mental health and well-being has been massively impacted by sensory overload, and they are not in a position to be able to do anything about it for such a wide variety of reasons. That's why organizations should have an accountability for it, because it's not just losing people, it's people having a horrible experience and not being able to do their work. Some exceptional people in your organization can't do their work because they're triggering migraines on a regular basis because you're asking them to go into meeting rooms that are too packed.
Like horrendous ones out there.
That's awareness, Theo, because it's about recognizing that doing what's good for 70% and that's okay isn't okay. So if 30% of people are being challenged and they're not working optimally, and that goes to Phil Turner's asking the challenges, can you give advice about what to do with some groups want something, some groups another? I think it's sharing the information to say what the impact is as a team. And if we are working as teams, how do we get the best out of everyone, not just certain groups?
No, you have to start the conversation. We all have to start talking, but it's, but anybody contact me if they want to.
Brilliant. Well, it's been a highly engaged conversation. Like the chat is lighting up, which is says something.
I can't see it, so I have no idea.
The chat is lighting up. Wait, if for another day, Catherine, I'll show you how you can open up the chat. But I advise people not to generally anyway, because it can be distracting. Whereas I need to be able to highlight them and share them on the screen. But thank you everybody for joining us. You can share this because it's on catch up. Even though we were live, you can catch up again on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and on your podcasting host of choice. Come and join our Neurodiversity Tea Time group on LinkedIn, and by all means request what you would like to see in one of our upcoming episodes, who you would like to see in one of our upcoming episodes, or if you indeed have something, a burning topic of desire that you would like to share with our wonderful world.
Tell us.
Have a fantastic weekend if you manage to get some time off. Thank you once again for joining us. Thank you, Catherine. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you. Have a good weekend, everybody, hopefully.
Bye.